أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين وبعد رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي رب زدني علما رب يسر ولا تعسر وتمم الخير ثم أما بعد والحمد لله السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Respected brothers and sisters, welcome to another one of our weekly hadith classes from Riyadh al-Salihin. Today we are on chapter number 293 onwards, and that is hadith number 1634. In today's lesson, the first chapter is باب النهي عن التشبه بالشيطان والكفار. That it is prohibited, and the prohibition of following the manners of shaitan and of the disbelievers. To follow their ways and their manners is not allowed for us, especially when there is clear nahi and clear prohibition regarding it in the Quran and in the Sunnah. Allah said, the hadith says 1634 عن جابر بن عبد الله عن جابر رضي الله عنه قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم لا تأكلوا بالشمال فإن الشيطان يأكل ويشرب بالشمال. Sayyidina Jabir radiyallahu anhu arda narrated that I heard the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam saying, do not eat with your left hand, because shaitan eats and drinks with his left hand. This is a big problem. So many people, Muslims, they are normally eating and drinking with their left hand. Maybe eating not so much, but we see them casually drinking water, drinking can with their left hand. This is not allowed. The hadith is clear. Don't. Why? Because this is like shaitan. Sometimes in need and from necessity, you might have to, for example, if you're driving and if you're right-handed and if you have to hold the steering wheel with the right hand and you don't have any other option, you need to drink water, then you drink with your left hand. That's in case of necessity, but generally this is the rule. Next hadith 1635 عن ابن عمر رضي الله عنهما أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال لا يأكلن أحدكم بشماله ولا يشربن بها فإن الشيطان يأكل بشماله ويشرب بها. Similar meaning from another Sahabi, Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Umar رضي الله عنه وارضاه, narrated the Prophet Muhammad صلى الله عليه وسلم said, no person should eat and drink with his or her left hand, because shaitan eats and drinks with his left hand, eats and drinks with his left hand. So this is a clear nahi. 1636 عن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال إن اليهود والنصارى لا يصبغون فخالفوهم. Sayyiduna Abu Hurairah رضي الله عنه وارضاه narrated that I heard the Prophet Muhammad صلى الله عليه وسلم saying that the Jews and the Christians do not dye their hair. So act differently, meaning you're allowed to dye them and you're instructed to dye your hair, as in color it, but not black, as we'll come to in the next chapter. Very important, very meaningful, because for me especially, because recently I've been getting white hair and I've been thinking to leave them. And now subhanAllah the hadith comes and it instructs it, so inshallah we'll see what happens. 294, next chapter. Prohibition of dyeing the hair black by males and females. باب نهي الرجال والمرأة عن خضاب شعرهما بسواد. 1637 عن جابر رضي الله عنه قال أتي بأبي قحافة والدي أبي بكر الصديق رضي الله عنهما يوم فتح مكة ورأسه ولحيته كالثغامة بياضا فقال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم غيروا هذا واجتنبوا السواد. Jabir ibn Abdullah رضي الله عنه وارضاه narrated that Abu Quhafa, who was the father of Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, he was the father of Sayyidina Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, okay, was presented, may Allah be pleased with him, was presented to the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ on the day of the conquest of Mecca. Okay? May Allah be pleased with them both. Was presented to the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ on the day of the conquest of Mecca, when the Mecca was reopened. And his head, Abu Quhafa, His head and his beard were snow white. So the Prophet ﷺ said, change it, i.e. color it, and avoid black color. So coloring your hair with a color that's not black is from the Sunnah as well. Very important chapter. 295. Prohibition of shaving a part of the head and permission for males to shave the entire head but not for females. باب النهي عن القزع وهو حلق بعض الرأس دون بعض وإباحة حلقه كله للرجال دون المرأة. 1638. عن ابن عمر رضي الله عنهما قال نهى رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم عن القزع. Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Umar narrated that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam forbade shaving part of the head. And this is a commonly asked question by many people. And what does qaza' mean, and to what extent is it prohibited? The prohibition, which is qaza', its tafsir and its explanation here is being done by Imam al-Nawawi. Imam al-Nawawi is telling us what it means. It means to shave part of the head and to leave another part. Here he's talking about shaving, completely slicing off, skin fade as they say. This is forbidden, which is to shave part of it. And a lot of brothers, and a lot of us, sometimes what we do is we have some of it short and some of it long. This is not the same as qaza'. Qaza' is to shave part of it and to leave the rest of it. To shave part of it completely and to leave the rest of it is what the nahi is about. That's what qaza' is. As for what they call short back and sides and etc., and people do it for various different reasons. Sometimes to, I don't know, maybe have the hair last for longer, to allow for longer growth, or generally as a preference, right? The qaza' is that which is to do with shaving a part of the hair completely. That's what it means. And how do you know? Prohibition. That he says that the Prophet ﷺ, naha anil qaza'i, the Prophet ﷺ forbade shaving part of the head. And the title of the chapter is Babu nahi anil qaza'i wahuwa. He says wahuwa. And qaza' is, he's explaining, is huwa halqu ba'd al-ra'si duna ba'd. Is to shave part of the head and not other parts of the head. Halqu ba'd al-ra'si duna ba'd. 1000, and then he also says, the Prophet ﷺ, yes. 1639. عن ابن عمر رضي الله عنهما قال رأى رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم صبيا قد حلق بعض شعر رأسه وترك بعضه فنهاهم عن ذلك وقال احلقوه كله أو اتركوه كله. Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Umar narrated the Prophet Muhammad صلى الله عليه وسلم saw a boy, some portion of whose head was shaven and some of it was left out. He prohibited them from that and said, shave the whole of it or leave the whole of it. Here some ulama will commentate and say that even the safest option is for you not to have short back and sides even. Because here the hadith is saying is to leave it completely as it is. So that's something for us to take heed from and to take istifada from, inshallah. 1640. عن عبد الله بن جعفر رضي الله عنهما أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أمهل آل جعفر ثلاثا ثم أتاهم فقال لا تبكوا على أخي بعد اليوم ثم قال ادعوا لي بني أخي فجيء بنا كأننا أفرخ فقال ادعوا لي الحلاق فأمره فحلق رؤوسا. عبد الله بن Ja'far narrated that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ gave respite for 3 days to the family of Ja'far after his martyrdom, after he was martyred. So this is the meaning of that, that a person after the death of a person should not carry on in the state of sorrow and depression and sadness for more than 3 days, because then we have other problems and shaitan takes the better of us. So we should try our best to try and recover after the passing of a loved one. And here in this case of Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Ja'far narrated that the Prophet ﷺ gave respite for 3 days to the family of Ja'far after his martyrdom. Then he came to them and said, do not weep for my brother after this day. He said, bring all of my nephews. So he said, after this day, no more crying. You've had 3 days to cry. You've had 3 days to, for your condolences and for you to feel sad. But now we have to make an active effort to try and stop crying. After this day, he said, bring all of my nephews to me. Bring all of my nephews to me. we were accordingly brought as if we were chickens. And he said, call for me a barber. He directed him to shave our heads, which he did. So he shaved all of their heads, meaning the explanation of either shave all of it or leave all of it. And definitely not to shave part of it and to leave the rest of it. عن علي رضي الله عنه قال نهى رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم أن تحلق المرأة رأسها. Sayyidina Ali ibn Abi Talib رضي الله عنه narrated the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم prohibited a woman from shaving her head. So women, for them to shave their head is not allowed. They have to allow for their hair to grow. Of course, in the case of necessity, when someone has to take medication, chemo and etc., this is a separate mas'ala. And it's jaiz. Okay? Prohibition of wearing wigs, tattooing, and filling the teeth in the explanation which is about to come. As for the ayat, قال الله تعالى إن يدعون من دونه إلا إناثا وإن يدعون إلا شيطانا مريدا لعنه الله وقال لأتخذن من عبادك نصيبا مفروضا ولأضلنهم ولأمنينهم ولآمرنهم فليبتكن آذان الأنعام ولآمرنهم فلا يغيرن خلق الله. The translation of this ayat in Surah An-Nisa, Allah is saying that Shaitan has made a promise and a vow. They all worship others than Allah, invoke nothing but female deities besides Allah, and they invoke nothing but Shaitan. A persistent rebel, the Shaitan. Allah cursed him, and he, Shaitan, said, I will take an appointed portion of your servants. Verily, I will mislead them, and surely I will arouse in them false desires, and certainly I will order them to slit the ears of the cattle, and indeed I will order them to change the nature created by Allah. So this whole mas'ala of changing the nature created by Allah is the big one. And it's the one that goes into various different areas of our physical appearance, physical existing. And with the age of genetic engineering and etc., this mas'ala comes in even more of a question. Because it is prohibited for us to change the creation of Allah. As for where Allah Azza wa Jal has created a person with a particular defect in their normal creation, are we allowed to improve that? Simple question. Are you allowed to wear braces? Your teeth are bent, so you wear braces. Here, because you are improving the condition of your teeth from being bent to straight, you're not changing. You're not changing from how a normal human teeth is to something else. This is jaiz. When you are improving and correcting a defect, a flaw, not a flaw from Allah, as in a particular aspect of a person's appearance that's normally supposed to be in a particular way, which is that you're supposed to have straight teeth, or having bent teeth could be a means and a cause to having oral diseases, because you can't brush your teeth properly, because you can't reach the areas, the bacteria will pile up, you'll have cavities and etc. So to improve this for health conditions and also for jamal and for beauty, etc., here you're not taking it beyond what's normal for a human being. That's tahseen, and this is beautification, which is permitted. As for changing completely, and that is prohibited and forbidden. And Allah is saying in the Quran that this is from the commands of Shaitan, that he tries to command people to change the creation of Allah. And we have now people trying to change their gender. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. This is of course not permissible in Islam. This is not permissible. They are enforcing upon them different types of hormones and medications and trying to give them extra this, and this destroys a person's health. Okay, it's very profitable for certain clinics and certain pharmaceutical companies, but it's not good for a person's biology or their chemistry or their hormones and their mental well-being. Their whole well-being is damaged by this. So what's the hadith? 1642 عن أسماء رضي الله عنها أن امرأة سألت النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم فقالت يا رسول الله إن ابنتي أصابتها الحصبة فتمرق شعرها وإني زوجتها أفأصل فيه فقال لعن الله الواصلة والموصولة. Asma radiallahu anha wa ardaha narrated that a woman came to the Prophet ﷺ and said, O Prophet of Allah, I have a daughter who had an attack of smallpox and her hair fell off. Now I want to celebrate her marriage. Can I get her a wig? Thereupon the Prophet ﷺ said, Allah has cursed the maker of the wig and the wearer of the wig. This is especially even more so when it comes to deception. Because a lot of the times when it comes to marriage and times like that, people use various types of concealer, makeup, wig, etc. to try and conceal and deceive their real appearance. And here in the context is also that the person is saying, the woman is asking that she had smallpox and now her hair has fallen off and I want to celebrate her marriage. So in order to celebrate her marriage, am I allowed to put a wig on her? So this is a mas'ala which is very important for sisters to also know, that to wear wigs and etc., to deceive people with wigs and etc., or to wear wigs as the hadith is saying in its itlaq, in its general meaning, is not permitted. 1643 عن حميد بن عبد الله عن حميد بن عبد الرحمن أنه سمع معاوية عام حج على المنبر وتناول قصة من شعر كانت في يد حرسية فقال يا أهل المدينة أين علماؤكم سمعت النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم ينهى عن مثل هذا ويقول إنما هلكت بنو إسرائيل حين اتخذها نساؤهم. This hadith is being narrated by Humayd ibn Abdul Rahman, may Allah be pleased with him, narrated that I saw Muawiyah radiallahu anhu arda during the Hajj standing on the pulpit, and he took from the guard a bunch of hair and said, O people of Medina, where are your scholars? Why do they do not prohibit you? I heard the Prophet ﷺ prohibiting from using this false hair and saying that from the nations before you, from the Banu Israel, there were people who were taking wigs like this, changing the creation of Allah, or deceiving people with the creation, changing their with wigs and etc., and were ruined when their women wore such and such. This is a hadith. 1644 عن ابن عمر رضي الله عنهما أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم لعن الواصلة والمستوصلة والواشمة والمستوشمة. Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu anhu narrates the Prophet ﷺ cursed the maker and the wearer of the wig and the tattooer and the one who is tattooed. So Muslims wearing tattoos, as you know, is not permitted. 1645 عن ابن مسعود رضي الله عنه قال لعن الله الواشمة والمستوشمات والمتنمصات والمتفلجات للحسن المغيرات خلق الله. فقالت له امرأة في ذلك فقال وما لي لا ألعن من لعنه رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم وهو في كتاب الله قال الله تعالى وما أتاكم الرسول فخذوه وما نهاكم عنه فانتهوا. Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Mas'ud narrated that Allah has cursed those who practice tattooing and those who have themselves tattooed and those who go to hair who get their hair removed from their eyebrows and their faces, except the beard and the mustache, of course, is not from the general appearance of a woman, so she's allowed to thread that or remove that. And this goes to show that when it comes to correcting a flaw or correcting an illness, if you like, or a disproportion, in the case of the woman, for her to have a mustache or a beard is not normally expected from her, so for her to remove that is jaiz, because that's to do with her appearing more feminine, and appearing feminine for females is also from the sunnah. Okay, so here he says that Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Mas'ud is cursing, saying those women who get their hair removed from their eyebrows and their faces, except the beard and the moustache, because that's of course not expected from them, and those who make artificial spaces between their teeth for beauty, whereby they change Allah's creation. Okay? So what they would do, because Arabs had this thing, they had a passion for women who had slight gaps in their teeth. And today we have the opposite, which is that everyone's teeth should be nice and straight and no gaps whatsoever. But they had this passion for women with small gaps. So he's saying, whereby they change Allah's creation by creating artificial spaces between their teeth. What's the norm? The norm is that the teeth are tightly together and they're in line and etc. And so if someone was to get braces and make their teeth straight, then this would not be haram, this would be fine. We're talking about those who try to change the creation of Allah by making gaps, extra gaps. That's not normal. Okay? And that's what the Prophet ﷺ, or Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Mas'ud is saying, is cursed. A woman had started to argue with him, saying, what is all this? He replied, why should I not curse those whom the Prophet ﷺ cursed and who are cursed in Allah's book? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said, and whatsoever the Prophet ﷺ has given you, take it, and whatsoever he forbids you, abstain from it. وَمَا أَتَاكُمُ الرَّسُولُ فَخُذُوهُ وَمَا نَهَاكُمْ عَنْهُ فَانْتَهُوا. That whatever Allah and His Rasul give, or whatever the Prophet came with, take, and whatever he prohibited, abstain from. Okay, and this is also a very important piece of evidence upon those who try to only say that only Quran should be followed, the Quraniyun, and those who don't take the Hadith and the Sunnah seriously, because this is a big, severe misguidance. And if you say, I just follow the Quran, and what does it say in the Quran, and is the Quran saying it or not, and if the Sunnah is saying it, they ignore and discard what the Sunnah says, then for these people, they must take heed that we are commanded to take that what is in the Quran and in the Sunnah, what the Prophet ﷺ has also said. Prohibition of plucking grey hairs from the beard or head and shaving off beard by a young man. باب النهي عن نتف الشيب من اللحية والرأس وغيرهما وعن نتف الأمرد شعر لحيته عند أول طلوعه. 1646. عن عمرو بن شعيب عن أبيه عن جده عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال لا تنفتوا الشيب فإنه نور المسلم يوم القيامة. Amr ibn Shu'ayb narrated on the authority of his father, on the authority of his grandfather, with the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم. What a beautiful chain of narration. Amr ibn Shu'ayb عن أبيه عن جده, from his father, from his grandfather. That's the chain of narration. Said that the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم said, do not pluck out grey hair, for they are the Muslims' light on the day of resurrection. Not to pluck it out, but instructed to color it, do sabgh of it, to dye it, but not black. Okay? Because dyeing is not prohibited, because it's not allowed, because it's prohibited, but also because it's a form of deception. A person can deceive a person with their age. They might be 60, are wearing, mashallah, tabarakallah, black every day, and they look like they're 35. So this is a form of deception as well. 1637. عن عائشة رضي الله عنهما قالت قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم من عمل عملا ليس عليه أمرنا فهو رد. Aisha radiallahu anha wa ardaha narrated, the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم said, he who does something contrary to our way, i.e. Islam, will have it rejected. This is a very powerful maxim and a powerful principle in our Sharia, that whomsoever does anything which is in opposition to laysa alayhi amruna, is that Islam is not commanding it, Islam is not permitting it, then it would be rejected. It has no value. So for example, someone comes to come and invent a new way of ibadah, you say فَهُوَ رَدٌّ يَا عَمِّ imshi with it, go away. It's not accepted. Rather, it's a form of disobedience to Allah. Because when it comes to ibadah, the Prophet ﷺ said, صَلُّوا كَمَا رَأَيْتُمُونِي أُصَلِّي. See, pray as you've seen me pray. خُذُوا عَنِّي مَنَاسِكَكُمْ. Do your manasik of Hajj and Umrah as you have seen me doing. Don't invent, don't innovate, don't do bid'ah. كُلُّ بِدْعَةٍ ضَلَالَةٍ كُلُّ ضَلَالَةٍ فِي النَّارِ. All matters of innovation are misguidance, and all misguidance is in Jahannam, is in the Nar. And this is referring to that which is in opposition to and contrast to that which Islam has allowed. Now here I have to make a clarification. If someone today says, I will do a khatma of the Quran today because I want to revise the Quran, because I want to do excessive ibadah, because there are no days in which good deeds are more beloved to Allah than the first 10 days of the Hijjah. Is it permitted? They want to do a khatma of the Quran today in one day. Is it permitted? But the Prophet ﷺ used to do a khatma of the Quran every 7 days. Does anyone know the answer to this question? No? Quran. And also the Prophet ﷺ said that none of you should recite the Quran in less than 3 days. So reciting the Quran in one go, in one khatma, in one day, is it allowed? Is it jaiz? The brother said it right, it should be jaiz. But tell me why it should be jaiz. Sorry? The Salaf used to do good. That's a solid evidence. That's a very, very solid evidence, which is that Tamim al-Dari radiallahu anhu arda, Sayyidina Uthman ibn Affan used to do it. Sayyidina Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullahi alayhi used to do it. Imam al-Shafi'i used to do 2 khatmas of the Quran in Ramadan. So this goes from the amal of the Sahaba and the Salaf that is permitted. Okay, that's fine. Let's take a different example. If someone today said, I have some free time, I would like to spend the night in Qiyamul Layl, and I would like to do many raka'at of nafl. Exactly how it's according to the Quran and Sunnah, I'm not going to change anything in the ibadah. Is that permitted? Just generally, I have some free time. I have this today, alhamdulillah, I have some free time. I would like to prostrate to Allah. I would like to meet Allah with kathrat sujood, as the Prophet ﷺ, has instructed me, and the Sunnah, Quran and Sunnah is guiding me towards to meet Allah with a lot of nafal. And وَمَا زَالَ عَبْدِي يَتَقَرَّبُ إِلَيَّ بِالنَّوَافِلِ. Abd keeps on getting near to me with nawafil until I start to love. In that meaning, in that light, with the encouragement, I want to do lots of nafal salawat. I want to do 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. Not assuming that it's wajib or it's sunnah. I just want to do it as nafal. Is that jaiz? Right. But the question is, did the Prophet ﷺ do that? Yeah, so I'm indicating towards the fact that the Prophet ﷺ used to do Qiyamul Layl of 8 raka'at and witr, and he would do 8 plus 1, he would do 11 raka'at of witr, and there's ikhtilaf upon that. The point that I'm trying to make, and I'm trying to show you, is that when the Prophet ﷺ forbade actions which are rejected, he is referring to actions which have no basis in the religion. Actions which have no basis in the religion. As for nafl salah, does it have a basis in the religion? Okay. Tilawatul Quran in excessive amounts, does it have a basis in the religion? Doing istighfar excessively, does it have basis in the religion? So these ibadat which are shown to us, have basis in the religion. These, if you say I want to do more of, there's no problem with that. But it's about creating, innovating new forms of actions, of ibadah, which are not adah, they're not to do with your, for example, transaction and trade and clothing and etc. With ibadah, which have no basis, which have no origin, which have no foundation. This, yes.
There's still a grey area where who decides what the grey area is like. For example,
The ulama do.
what about Hadith, for example?
That's probably what I'm referring to.
Very problematic.
Right.
For some people it's not.
For those muftis who allow it and those mashayikh who allow it, they have their fatwas. They have their reasons. Would I ever partake in a hadra? I don't think so. Would I ever encourage it? I don't think so. Would I ever endorse it? I don't think so, huh? You don't know what hadra is. You know those people you see doing round and round and round and etc. Those. Now, I try my best to be as respectful as possible to all our different schools of thought and ulama and etc. But wallahi, I am a jahil. I don't know anything. I am a student of knowledge. And unless those ulama have a very profound way of investigation and information and istidlal, I'm completely unaware. From what I know, the basics that I know, I don't know where this is coming from. Wallahi, I don't know where this is coming from.
They said that some of the Sahaba, when they got excited,
But subhanAllah, look, do you see what the problem with, like, the Prophet ﷺ gave us clear evidence of that which is ibadah, that which is taqarrub, that which is the most rewarding. The most rewarding of actions to Allah is the fara'id, then the wajibat, then the sunnah, then the mustahabat, and the nawafil. There is nothing more beloved that you can do with your tongue than dhikrullah and tilawatul Quran. This is with all due respect to everyone that deserves respect. I don't know how you can abstain from this and say this is the better way. Okay, and I don't know how, I can't be any more polite than that. And I try to be polite, subhanAllah, because I don't want to be someone who pushes division and disunity and fragmentation within the ummah. Coming back to the topic, inshallah, we'll come back to the topic of which is that doing things which have basis in the religion, which have origin in the religion, which have foundation in the religion, these are not problematic at all. Even if you do more of it sometimes, for example, tilawatul Quran, nafal salah, salawat upon the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, istighfar, subhanallah, alhamdulillah, la ilaha illallah, tasbih and tahleel and takbir and so on. One of the evidences for this also is, remember that Sahabi when he got up from ruku' and said, Sami Allahu liman hamida, Rabbana lakal hamdu, hamdan kathiran tayyiban mubarakan fi. Okay? What the Prophet ﷺ said after salah is what? Who is the person that made this tasbih? Because I saw 70 angels rushing to try and report this to Allah. He didn't turn around and say, who dared to increase a phrase into Rabbana lakal hamd? Rather, he praised it and he endorsed it. He didn't just endorse the dhikr, he endorsed the fact that he added something from himself to praise Allah. That means there is basis for praising Allah excessively in our ruku', in our sujood, in our tasbih, in our tahleel. As long as the word is befitting with Allah, with His asma and His sifat, with His qualities and attributes, and etc. So therefore, actions and ibadat, that which have a basis within the religion, for us to do more of it, this is not rad, this is not rejected. Someone once said, for example, before salah we say istawu i'tadilu istaqimu. Okay, istawu, straighten your rows, fix your rows, make it straight and etc. These announcements before salah, are they a part of salah? They're not a part of salah. Because if there was a part of salah, it would not be allowed for us to say turn your mobile phones off. And we do. Right? These are announcements for us to prepare for the taswiyah to sufuf and etc. But the problem is sometimes some brothers, once a brother said to me, Ya Imam, you're adding some words in, where did you get the base from? And it was a simple explanation that this is not part of the salah. This is not a part of the ibadah which is restricted for me to only be rigid to a particular wording. If I need to today make an announcement that everyone, as we did in Corona times, make 2 meter distance, is that from the sunnah? No. But we had to make the announcement for the time and the situation. So this is some clarity and perhaps a discussion of a bigger topic at a later time. But the point is that yes, there is a very huge need for us to be clear that anything which the religion has not endorsed, has not given permission to, is not within the framework of our sharia, is rejected. But this framework of our sharia is not something for us to take lightly, and it's not a narrow matter. Okay? Someone will come and say, now this is a sentence that's misused. They will say, this is not from the sunnah. But what they mean is, there isn't a hadith backing this up. هناك اختلاف, there is a farq, there is a big difference between something being from the sunnah. The sunnah is the framework of the Prophet ﷺ sunnah. What he laid, that what the Quran and Sunnah come together to make a framework, the usul and the qawa'id and the maxims that guide our life, that is the Sunnah, the Quran and the Sunnah. But for me to use a desk like this, there is no hadith backing it up. But it is from the Sunnah because the Prophet ﷺ used the mimbar and he used the tools required for him to be able to convey the knowledge to the Sahaba. Does that make sense? Just because something is not explicitly not mentioned in the hadith, it does not necessarily mean that it's not from the sunnah or it's against the sunnah. Because I've seen many young brothers, and maybe sisters too, use this phrase very loosely, saying that this is not from the sunnah, and I say to them, how do you know? How much of the sunnah have you studied? How much of the sharia have you studied? How much of the Quran and the hadith and the usul and the qawaid have you studied to know that this is not from the sunnah? What you maybe mean is that I've never heard a hadith about this. But there may well be a hadith about it, or may well fall within the guidelines and the framework of Islamic law and sharia and usul and etc. Anyway, without complicating it too much, inshallah, we'll stop up to here. Bi-idhnillah, we'll carry on with from 298 in our coming lesson. As you know, these are very blessed days, very blessed moments. Inshallah, it's an opportunity for us to do ibadah. Especially tonight is the night of Jumu'ah, and of course, it's in the days of Dhul Hijjah and the day before Arafah. So inshallah, let's not be negligent. Let's try to do some extra ibadah in this time. Dua, istighfar, tilawatul Quran, tahajjud. Inshallah, let's be consistent. There is a lot for us to understand. There is a lot for us to learn. And inshallah, slowly, step by step, inshallah, we'll try to grow. May Allah give us all tawfiq and steadfastness. Jazakumullahu khairan. Subhanakallahumma ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.